Shalom, manishma. Toda. Okay, that is your lot. I'm out of Hebrew. But thank you very much for having me here today. It's a pleasure to be here in Israel. It is a pleasure to be here in Israel. It is my first time in your country, and you'll be delighted. You'll be delighted to see that I brought the British weather with me. You are welcome. Okay. We're going to talk about stories today. Facts tell, stories sell. But before we get into that, a little story about me. You see, I'm afraid there's an elephant in the room. You know the expression, elephant in the room? The elephant in the room is that, well, I've been in BNI over 18 years. I ran BNI in the UK and Ireland for over 13 years. But the elephant in the room is, I don't really like networking. I'll happily avoid networking if at all possible. There's one or two of you are in this room I can see as well who are like me. I'll explain why in a second. But I'm now the global master trainer for BNI. I've been entrusted here today to talk to you about networking. Well, how does this all work if I am this unnatural networker? You see, I wrote my first book in 2014, The Unnatural Networker. And it was then that I realized, actually, how much I really tried to avoid networking. I'm going to give you a little demonstration for a second of me at a networking event. Would you like to see that? The enthusiasm is awesome. Here is me at a networking event. Are you ready? Cool. Away we go. I'm just checking my emails. Playing Candy Crush now. You see, the smartphone, it's not a device to keep you connected, to make calls, to access data services and play Candy Crush or whatever is your favorite. It's a device to stop people like me from looking like a lemon at a networking event. Make it look like I've got something to do. And as I said, I saw one or two of you in the crowd here today. Who here is with me and finds networking maybe a little bit awkward from time to time, struggles with it a little bit, maybe a little bit shy, maybe a little introvert? Hands up, unnatural Okay, there are always some weirdos that are natural networkers. We'll excuse them. But no, there are some very natural networkers. My other half, Hannah, is the most extroverted natural networker that you can possibly wish to meet. Maybe they say it's true, opposites do attract. But, you know, a lot of people are unnatural networkers. We've just seen that. And for those of you natural networkers here, you're going to meet and encounter a lot of unnatural networkers. So it makes sense to understand how an unnatural networker looks at things. And I guess that's what I do. Through that book, I realized that I could explain networking and encourage BNI members across the UK and Ireland, and indeed further around the world, to think how an unnatural networker approaches it. And it was when I launched that book, something else happened. See, I remember the launch party that we had when that book came out in 2014. The day, it was an evening do. There were about, 80, 90 people coming to this event. The team in the office had done a wonderful job, and they put out, canapes and glasses of fizz, and it was a really lovely do. The guests started arriving. Where was I? I was upstairs hiding. And it was then that I realized, and it came the idea for my second book, The Unnatural Promoter. There are people who don't feel comfortable shouting about themselves. In England, we have a phrase, we don't like to blow our own trumpet. Does that translate? You know that phrase? And I know rationally that those people had come to my first book launch to celebrate it. They were people who cared deeply about me. They wanted to share in the success. They wanted to ask me questions. They wanted to know about it. But still deep down, I found it quite hard. I didn't like having the spotlight on me. And what we're going to do today is look at how stories in particular can help you as an unnatural promoter. Okay? I know not all of you will be unnatural promoters. Definitely not our extroverted natural networkers over there. But when we look at what self-promotion means, I don't know if you've ever done this, but if you looked up self-promotion in the dictionary, it's not particularly kind, let's say. Let's have a look at what it says. Self-promotion, the action of promoting or publicizing oneself or one's activities, especially in a forceful way. That's the dictionary. Especially in a forceful way. And it gets worse. You know how in dictionaries and reference guides, you'll often see a sentence with the word used, so you see it in context. Yeah? This is the sentence for self-promotion. She's guilty of criminally bad taste and shameless self-promotion. I mean, seriously, why the negativity? Why is it so socially awkward, at a very general level, to shout about oneself? Why do we find that difficult? I mean, some people might say it's because I'm British, and us Brits do sometimes, well, we can be a bit reserved. But I know plenty of British people who are very happy to shout about themselves, and equally, I know plenty of people from around the world who are like and don't like to shout about themselves. So I don't think it's that. But the fact is that society views self-promotion in a somewhat negative way. And what we've got to do when we're trying to promote our business, because let's face it, we all have to do that. If you don't promote your business, if you don't get the phone ringing, if you don't get clients coming through the door, well then you're not going to have much of a business. So we have to be able to promote ourselves. Now you've all taken the very wise step of coming into BNI. It's a great way to do it, especially for an unnatural promoter or an unnatural networker. It gives you, you have to be there, a bit of accountability. You have to show up. You get the chance to do your weekly presentation. No one else talking. Everyone's eyes on you. You get the focus. You have to, because of giver's gain, you want to see if you can help other people. So you know there's going to be a reasonable chance of a return for you. So BNI is a great place for us unnatural networkers and unnatural promoters. But whether you are unnatural around it or not, what I want to share with you today is how stories can make your message so much more effective. For the unnatural promoter, it means you don't have to shout about yourself as much. And for those natural ones, well, it's just a great way to get your business across. I'll explain more and show you how that works in a bit. But for now, let's share a story. I want to share a story about a lady I know in BNI. Her name's Marie. Marie runs a travel agency business. And she told me this story. It was actually in a one-to-one I heard this story, but it doesn't matter where it was. It's the story itself that gets interesting. So Marie's telling me that she's in her office one Thursday evening, about 5:45 in the early evening. What are we doing at 5:45 on a Thursday evening? Are we generally being really proactive and generating new business at that point? No. We're thinking about relaxation, the weekend, family time. Marie at that point had some friends coming over that evening, and they were going to have a meal. She was just wondering, what are we going to have? Have a takeaway. Anyway, at that exact moment, she's paused from her thoughts about her evening takeaway, and the phone rings. And there's a lady on the other end of the line who's very obviously upset. And Marie says, look, what's going on? How can I help? And it turned out the lady was due to be married that weekend. The problem was she wouldn't be able to go on her honeymoon, which was due to be on the Sunday. She was due to fly off on her honeymoon. The reason being, there was a strike. There were no flights to the Caribbean where she was off to. And she said, look, I know it's short notice, but is there anything you can do? We're desperate. Marie said, look, I don't want to promise, but let me see what I can do. Let me just ask you one question. where will you be tomorrow morning? And she said, well, I'm going to be getting ready for the wedding at my mum's house, and told her where it was. Marie put the phone down, she picked it up again, she made a few calls, and she managed to source a very equivalent holiday. Same dates, same quality of hotel, even a couple of the excursions and activities. It was just, instead of being to the Caribbean, it was to Hawaii. The next morning, she went round to the lady's mum's house and said, there you go, there's your tickets. Now, there would normally be a late booking fee, but hey, that's my wedding present to you. I'm not going to charge you that. I want you to have a lovely day today and obviously have a wonderful honeymoon. The story doesn't finish there. About 2 weeks later, Marie was sat in her office again, and a postcard came through the door. On it was this idyllic Hawaiian beachside scene. On the back, there were a few short words. We don't know what we'd have done without you. Okay, end of story. Show me, by show of hands, would you refer business to Marie, the travel agent? You would, right? Of course you would. Let's look at why you'd refer business to Marie. Was she good at, oh, go on, shout them out. She's got a wow. She just created a wow of her business. Yes, go on, shout them out. Yes. Sorry, say again. Yes. What else? She's reliable. Look, only one. Come on, don't be greedy. Reliable, we'll go with that. She's creative. She solved the problem. Yes. Sorry, forgive me, you're going to have to shout. This is why we need travel agents. Yes. One or two more. Professional, good at her job. Yes. Made the impossible possible. Love it. She gave her heart to it. Yes. She was passionate. She was generous. She took a risk. Go on. Yes, at the back. Let's go to the naughty kids at the back. See you, but go on. Yeah, she got the solution. She has connections. Look, all of those reasons are good. All of those reasons are why you would recommend her, but there's a much simpler one that was actually touched on much earlier. It's because I told you a story. It's the story that grabs you. You don't know Marie. You don't know the situation, but you heard about it. And what did you do? You got emotionally invested in it. You just, poor lady, what do I know? Did she get to go on a honeymoon? That's at the root of it. That's what we want to know as human beings. Now, we may be talking about business. And of course, in BNI and an event like this and in our chapters, we're talking about business. I get that. But we're still people. We're people with real lives, friends, family, issues, problems, successes, challenges, everything else. And when we hear about those people issues, that's when we connect and we're able to refer better. How many times have you sat through your chapter meeting and people have been doing the weekly presentations or maybe the feature presentation and you've honestly been thinking, what are they on about? What are they talking about? This is going maybe right over my head. I don't understand what they're just listing out their products. They're talking in jargon. There's all sorts of reasons why you might not keep up with it. But you can be almost guaranteed to keep up with the story. Stories will make you more easily recalled. People remember stories. So when they're off in the course of their lives and their working week, they'll remember your story. They'll tell other people your story. And when they tell other people your story, guess what happens? You'll get referred. And the great thing about it is, for the unnatural promoters amongst us, that you don't have to talk about ourselves. You don't have to talk about this yourselves. So what do you got to do? You've got to tell stories. Who is good at telling stories? Well, hold on. I told a story there and you enjoyed it, but I can't come to your chapter meeting and tell your story every week. You really don't want that. It'd be terrible. So the onus is on you. The onus is on you to tell those stories. So, let's ask again. Who can tell a good story? I'm not seeing every hand up in the room here. But, good, I'm guessing you can. Okay, so what we're going to do is have a look at how telling stories really makes a difference. And like I said, I asked that question, who is good at telling stories? You know, maybe you're not right now. Maybe you do it a bit and you'd like to work on it. We're going to focus a little bit on how you can tell better stories in your weekly presentation. Look, it can apply in any networking scenario. It can apply, as I said, in your presentation. It can apply in a one-to-one. It can apply out here over a coffee, having a quick chat. Any networking scenario, you can use stories, and I promise you, it'll be more interesting and you'll have better conversations. All right? So let's have a look at what you need to put into a story, and I'm focusing particularly on client success stories here for BNI. Okay, I appreciate there's lots of different types of stories, but we're going to focus on client success stories. Anytime you're putting things together, it's like cooking, you're baking a cake or whatever it might be, you need a set of ingredients. Let's run you through these, maybe you want to jot these down. First thing is you've got to have a problem. There's got to be an issue of some kind. Okay? There's no story if there isn't a problem of some kind. I mean, picture the last film you saw. Did it all start off here, very nice, and it went along for a bit, and it was all very nice, and it went along for a bit more, and it finished, and it was all very nice? No, that wouldn't be a story at all, would it? It will started over here. Okay, it may have started all very nice, but then someone was in danger, or the world was going to explode, and there was a problem, and then there was a solution, and there were ups and downs, and troughs and peaks, and all sorts, until it resolved over here. You've got to have a problem. There's got to be an issue. What else do you need? You need to have a solution. You need to have, look, let's be clear, not every story will have a successful, happy ending, let's put it that way. Not every story will, sometimes they don't, but it's got to resolve in some way. What else do you need? You need some structure. You need people to be able to follow your story. It's got to be clear where you're up to in your story. I'll talk a bit more about that in a bit. When I want to focus on one particular part will help us with that. You also need some emotion. Emotion will make a big difference to your stories. Because remember what we said about picture Marie and her lady who wanted to go on honeymoon. We just wanted to know, how did it go for her? Because in the end, if we can put ourselves in the shoes of the people in the story, that's when they connect the most. What else? You need some characters. What sort of characters are you going to have? A hero, yes. Who said hero? Who's going to be the hero in our story? Yeah, you guys are. You are the hero in your story. But if you've got a hero, what else have you got? A villain. We like a villain in our story. Now, let's be clear. It's not necessarily a person. It's not like a James Bond-style baddie plotting to blow up the world or something like that. Sometimes it is a metaphorical villain. You know, it's a situation that's going against our hero, or, you know, they're running out of time or money, or, you know, it's an issue that they've got to solve. That could be your villain in this case. But you've still got to have that, you know, counterpoint to the hero. Who else might you have? One other type of character you might have in a story. Yes. We call it yes, that's the word. The damsel in distress. Maybe that's a bit unfair. It could be a dude in distress as well, let's be clear. So, yeah, it's the person who perhaps is suffering that needs to, you know, your help to come along, okay? So you need that characterization to make the story come alive. One last thing. I'll tell you what it is in a second. Let me ask you a question. Go back to Marie's story for a moment. When was it precisely? Thursday, 5:45. Exactly. What you need is a few details. Now, if you overload a story with details, it's just going to become unwieldy and a bit boring, let's be clear. But just a couple of details here, again, we're trying to put ourselves in the person's shoes. We've all been in that situation when we're in our office and we're thinking, nah, it's the weekend now, I don't really want to work. Oh, sorry. There you go. We've all been in that situation, so we immediately place ourselves in that, and it just helps with the human connection. Now, I'm going to cheat and break my own rules. I've just said that's effectively a menu, a set of ingredients for your story. So all of them are important. But I'm going to cheat and say, if you could only have one, you're only allowed one. Everyone write down one of those that you'd put in. Okay, I've heard emotion, I've heard solution. Anyone think different? A problem? Any others? You need characters, yeah? Details? So basically we need all of them, that's what you're saying, yeah? Excellent. Well, that's not worked out. No, I think if there's one you take more than any other, it's emotion. Always emotion. Because remember, we're looking for that human connection. That's what makes our stories sell. Remember what you said at the start? Facts tell, stories sell. It's that part that makes the difference. Now, this can cause some challenges, and you may be sat there thinking, emotion? Now this brings to mind a time when I was doing this session. It was in a workshop style rather than a big room like this. And there was a lady down the front of the room, maybe about where you are in the green jacket, roughly where the room was. And I could see her when I was talking about this emotional point, and she was looking so worried. And I clocked it, you kind of do when you're looking at a room. And I said, what's going on? What's the issue? And she said, look, I get it. I understand why we need emotion. I run a payroll company. What is emotional about payroll? The reaction was similar to yours just then.
What if someone doesn't get it?
You should just get up here and come and deliver the presentation, honestly. But that is exactly what happened. We talked about it. I said, tell us about a recent client. And it was about this time of year. It was maybe, late January time of year. And she told us about a situation with her client who just before the Christmas break in the UK, she ran the payroll for the company. There was the payroll, the company, and the bank. They were the three people that were involved in this problem. And it was nothing to do with the company. It was nothing to do with her as the payroll provider. It was the bank that had messed up. And on the 23rd of December, just before Christmas, the company with 7 employees, small business, couldn't pay their staff. Immediately, she clocked it. We're all in that situation. To be in a situation where we're going to a public holiday, haven't got paid, that's a problem. And the way she sorted it was lovely. She said, what she did was she drew the funds out of her own funds, paid the staff, and sorted it out with the bank in the new year. So here's the question. Would you refer business to her as a payroll provider? Yeah. You would, wouldn't you? It just helps with your understanding of what people's business is, how they would approach different situations. There is always emotion there. You've just got to dig deep to find it. And I want to give you some more clues to help you find the emotion. I said earlier that we were going to talk about the structure, and I'll do that now to help illustrate this point. Okay? There's really 3 parts that I would suggest you put in your structure of a story. They are the setup. That's where you set the scene. It's where you introduce the characters. You tell us the problem. What's the situation? Why it's not just a simple click your fingers, fix, done. You give us the picture. You've then got what you did. Remember, this is a story particularly about how you can share your client success stories. So what did you come in and do? You're the superhero. You came in and did your stuff. And then you've got what I call the afters. Afters are what the client is left with after you're done. No one actually buys your product or service. I'm sorry to break that to you, but they don't buy your product or service. They buy what your product or service gives them. No one buys a light bulb, they buy light. People don't buy glasses, they buy sight. It's not what the product is, it's what the client is left with once you're done. Okay? Now, I'm going to get you to think about this for a second individually, and then I'm going to get you to chat to your next door neighbour for a moment. But do this individually first. If you think of the importance of those 3 sections for your stories, you've got 100% to play with. How much weighting are you going to give to each section? All right? I'd like you to think about this. Do it individually. Write down 3 percentages. And I want to think, how important is the setup? I'm going to give that, what percentage, what weighting am I going to give that? How much am I going to give what you did? How much are you going to give the afters in your story, okay? Give you 10 seconds. Write down 3 percentages. By the way, they do have to add up to 100. That's just for fun. All right? Away you go. Write down 3 percentages. Do this individually. No talking. I'll give you a chance to share your answers in a second. Has everyone got 3 percentages? Cool. Right. I'm now going to let you talk to your next door neighbour. I'd like you to compare notes. Just for 30 seconds. Bear with me when I ask you to come back. I want you to see, did you pick the same numbers? Did you have different ideas? Away, 30 seconds. Thank you. Right, did you agree with your next door neighbour? No? We're supposed to be relationship building here. Come on. Come on then. I won't ask you all to share your numbers. That'll be a bit much. But let's have a look at the setup. Hands up if you had setup as the most important part, the biggest percentage. Go on, shout out a couple of numbers. 60%? 50%? Any advance on 60%? Okay. A few of you heard that. What about what you did? Who had that as the most important? Again, shout me out a percentage. 50? Oh, he's gone precise over here. 55%? 70? Even more weighting. Any higher than 70? No? Okay. And what about the afters? Who had afters as the most? 60%? Any advance on that? 50 is less than 60, just to be clear. Nothing more than 60? Fair enough. 70. It's like an auction. Any higher, lower. Right. Okay. Let me share my percentage with you. And you and I are on the same page here because we go precision. I like precision. You'll see what I mean in a second. I'll give you the setup first. This is the weighting I give. I'm not saying it's the percent or the amount of the story. You know, it won't necessarily be the length within the story, but it's the weighting and the importance of this section. Setup. I give it 47.5%. I told you, I'm even more precise than you. So, quite important. Nearly half needs to go into the setup. No, I don't round. No. Precision. I've told you. Right. Shh. Let me move on. I'll come back to what you did in a second. I'm going to give you my percentage for the afters next. And it's 47.5% again. That's right, maths fans. It's only 5% what you did. Can I say something controversial? I'm not going to say it until you all shh. This isn't an important point. Shh. I'm going to say something controversial. Are you okay if I say something controversial? Kind of going to say it anyway, so you haven't got much choice. But anyway. What you do is really boring. I'll say it again in case you missed it. What you do is really boring. Now, I understand what you do is your life's work, it's your passion, you love it, and it's amazing. Of course it isn't boring to you. But from a storytelling point of view, we don't care. We literally do not care. Okay, you might have some juicy stories for us, but yeah, that's probably different. Look, for the vast majority, challenge accepted, we don't care. Think back to Marie's story for a second. What did we hear about what Marie actually did? I just said she picked up the phone and made some calls. That was it.
And she came to her house.
But that's it. It's minor details. There's nothing much to it. What we really care about, and this is the way to make your stories emotional, is hearing how the client felt about it. Really, the setup is how the client felt about you before you showed up. What were they feeling on the day they made the first call to you and said, I need your help? What position were they in? How did they feel? What was the issues for them? Yeah? What did they feel after you went away? And again, like I say, it's not necessarily an amount of time that you'll be delivering this content in the story. It's just the importance of it. Think back to Marie again. Postcard. We don't know what we'd have done without you. That tells you everything we need to know about the afters in Marie's case. So, steer clear of what you did. You're the superhero. You swoop in, save the day, done. Tell us about your client. Make it about the client. Put the client first. Get the audience on side with their issue, what the problem was, and then tell us how they felt about you afterwards. Is this making sense? Kind of hope so, because you're going to have a little practice, okay? We're going to have a little bit of background music on while you do this, and I'm going to give you 5 minutes, okay? Please, because I'm going to set you off networking. You're BNI members, and I know you like to talk. So when I bring you back, yeah, shocking. Don't ever network. Don't ever talk. It's much easier. I know you like to talk, but what I am going to ask is when I call you back, please just, I will obviously interrupt your conversation. It's just the way it's going to be, okay? Well, what you're going to do, you're going to talk to your next door neighbor. If it can be someone you don't know so well, great. But if not, doesn't matter. Don't move around to do this. And I want you, in a couple of minutes each, because you've both got to have a go, is share a client success story. I will go back to the full ingredients list so you make sure you can include them, okay? Do your best to see how many of those you can include, but make it about your clients, okay? So you've got about 2 minutes-ish each way. You've got 5 minutes in total. Away you go. Go and tell some stories. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. This is where you promised me your attention again. If you can hear me, please say shh. I knew you wouldn't like it. I had to interrupt. BNI members love networking, and rightly so. I'm sorry to interrupt your stories. Just quickly, I know you only had a couple of minutes away, and it was quick and fast, and you've just seen this. Based on what you just heard, would you be prepared to refer your partner business? You would, right? Good. Stories are much more effective at getting referrals. And I just want to show you how you fit this in. So I'm just going to flick through these again. Just want to show you how you fit these in to your regular weekly meeting. I mean, really, we're talking about your weekly presentation. That's the best time to deliver your stories. So your weekly presentation might go something like this. Your name and company, just to start. You tell the story, and it's all about the client. We're not talking about you. This is all putting the client as the main thing, getting the emotion, all those things we talked about. And then there's another key thing that needs to happen. What else needs to happen? You need to be specific. The more targeted you are in the clients you're looking for, the better it's going to work. Now, lots of BNI members know this. Who hears about being specific in BNI? You will have heard that. Why isn't every hand up here? I mean, that's surely, everyone's heard about that, yeah? The key is about how you integrate your story and your specific into your weekly presentation. See, what a lot of members do, sometimes members do tell stories. I do hear stories in weekly presentations. I'm sure you have too. Quite often you hear about specific asks. But where people go wrong is they don't marry the two together. The key to success is when you marry up your specific ask with your story. So let's say you want to get referrals to hotels. It is going to make sense that you tell stories based around what you've done to help hotels. You want to help homeowners with a big garden. It's going to make sense if you tell stories around how you've helped a homeowner with a big garden. Does this make sense? Yeah. This is what so many BNI members miss. They may do the story, they may do the specific, but they don't put them together. If you can marry them together, that's where you'll get the success you deserve. That's pretty much me. I've got one last thing I want to finish with, but before I do that, I don't know if you found this useful. I don't know if there's any unnatural networkers out there who might find this useful. I do a regular newsletter for unnatural networkers. Unnatural networkers of the world unite. That's what I say. If you would like to get that and be added to the mailing list, I'd be delighted to do so. There's a QR code that you can scan there. And as part of that, I will send you my ebook. Do you come here often? The 13 best networking lines to use at an event. That's just as a gift. If you want to sign up for the newsletter, up to you if you'd like to do that. I'll leave that stuff on screen just for a second to allow you to do that. If you're not connected to the internet, you're going to struggle with that. Come and talk to me afterwards. We can sort that out. Come and talk to me afterwards if you'd like to be added to that. That's no problem. Okay. As I said, I just want to finish on one last thing. When you think destination cities in America, what do you think? Miami, yeah. New York? LA? Vegas, maybe? What you probably aren't thinking is Cincinnati. No one ever goes to Cincinnati. They tend to travel through Cincinnati, with all due respect to people who come from Cincinnati, Ohio. But I'd like to finish, as you'd expect a presentation about stories, by telling you a story where Cincinnati features strongly. This is William. William was born in the UK in 1801. He was born in London. His first entrepreneurial adventure was nothing short of a complete disaster. In 1819, he set up his first business in London. Tell my mum I'll call back later, yeah? He set up his first business in 1819 in London. He set up a candle shop. And on his first day of trading, do you know what happened? The shop burned down. Left him £8,000, which probably today doesn't sound so much, but in 1819 was a hell of a lot of money. Left him £8,000 in debt. So he decided with his wife Martha to emigrate to the US. New start. Went to New York, set up a business there. Found they didn't really like New York and thought, no, we want to travel west, we want to go to California. So they traveled across America. But unfortunately and tragically, when they reached Cincinnati, Martha, his wife, became really ill. And she passed away. Distraught, naturally, he gave up his dreams of getting to California and just stayed in Cincinnati. And over time, developed a new life, set up a business again as a candle maker, didn't burn down. And he met his second wife, Olivia, a little later. Then I want to show you this guy. This guy is James. He was born in Ireland in 1803. His family also emigrated to the US. Just en masse they went, and they were headed to Illinois. Unfortunately, tragedy struck again. When they were traveling through on their way to Illinois, in Cincinnati, James became seriously ill. Healthcare being what it was, it took a long time to survive, to get better. He did get better, but after a number of months, his family just thought, look, there's no point going to Illinois. We're settled here. We'll stay here now. So he stayed in Cincinnati. He set up his business as a soap maker. And he met his wife, Elizabeth Ann. Now, why am I telling you this story about these two guys? The link between them is they actually married into the same family. Olivia and Elizabeth Ann were sisters. That's all very nice, you might be thinking. But what relevance has this got to do with us here in BNI and telling stories and being an unnatural promoter and all these things that we've been talking about? Well, it turns out that William and James were actually unnatural promoters themselves. They didn't really like talking about their business. They didn't really chat to each other. Yeah, they saw each other at a family occasion, but they never talked business. And it was actually the pair's father-in-law, Alexander Norris, that introduced the two of them together and said, look, your businesses are quite similar. You really might want to have a chat sometime. In effect, he referred them. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because I never gave you their full names. James and William are actually William Procter and James Gamble, and formed the global behemoth that we know now as Procter & Gamble. Procter & Gamble formed because of a referral. Never underestimate the power of referrals. They make a massive difference. You being in BNI have already taken a step ahead of your competition by doing what you do, practicing what you practice, practicing giver's gain, helping each other, and growing your businesses. And as the unnatural promoter, all I want to do is help you get more of these referrals. You'll get more referrals when you stay away from facts and move on to stories. Ta-da!